Welcome to part 2 of What Do I Say When? I'm Carol Merlo, and I'm so glad you've joined me. In part 1, we talked about what you're really doing when you have a networking conversation with somebody and why it's important to learn these skills so you can go out, feel confident when you're speaking to a prospect. Now let's get into starting a successful conversation and creating rapport. Many of us feel a little bit uncomfortable when we're starting a conversation with a stranger. I think this is a holdover from childhood when we were told, do not talk to strangers. And so we just didn't develop the skills to start chatting away without some formal introduction. Well, in this business, the whole fun is in learning to talk to strangers and get to know them. The goal is to create small talk. The purpose of small talk is to connect people with a sense of commonality, but without any risk. You want to find out what you have in common with a person and find out what their needs and interests are before you can decide if there's somebody you would like to work with. So be on the lookout for opportunities to practice talking with new people. The way to get the conversation going is to ask open-ended questions. Now, open-ended questions always start with what, who, when, or where, and are designed to get the other person to answer the question in a sentence or more, basically to get the person to open up. Now, a closed-ended question will result in the person saying yes or no. And when they do that, you really don't know anything more about them, really. The purpose of asking questions is to get that person to open up to you. So you want to be able to ask as many open-ended questions as possible and then really pay attention to what they're saying. You're listening to them and getting to know them. That is the number one key. Now, once you find somebody interesting to approach, that's when you start a conversation. The easiest way to start a conversation is to make an observational statement about something called the common ground. The common ground is the situation you're in with that person, what's happening in the environment, what's happening around you, what that person is doing, etc. The more sense of commonality you can create with a person, the more they're going to like you and open up to you. So focusing on the common ground is a really good way to start. Here's some examples. Let's say you're sitting in an airplane and the person next to you is reading a book. You can say something like, "Wow, I noticed that you're reading Moby Dick. Why did you pick that book to read? What do you like about it?" Or if you're at a networking event and you're eating next to somebody, you could say, "Hey, I see you got the Caesar salad. How's it taste?" Okay? Or let's say you're at a party. You could say something about the venue, for example, like, "What do you think of this amazing view?" And that way the person will really start to open up to you. You can also give somebody a compliment to start a conversation. Now be careful with this because sometimes compliments can make people feel uncomfortable. They might feel self-conscious or they might think you're using flattery. So you have to focus on that person's behavior rather than their beingness in order to make them feel comfortable about the compliment. Okay, so let's say there's somebody that's doing a talk at a meeting. You could say, "Wow, your speech was really terrific. You're so enthusiastic about your topic." Or you could say, "You're a good speaker." Okay, if you tell them you're a good speaker, then you're not going to get the same result. In a social situation, you could compliment a person's clothing or how they do their hair or something like that. "Your dress is beautiful. That color's perfect for you." Instead of "you are beautiful," which would make that person feel embarrassed. This way, the person knows what you appreciate and will feel a greater sense of rapport with you. After you have some rapport developed, you can ask the person questions related to money or health or whatever it is that your particular opportunity offers. So start out by saying, "What do you do for a living?" and then really listen to the answer. You want to listen to the emotion in their answer. Are they enthusiastic? Are they kind of matter of fact? Or are they sound a little discouraged? Okay? And then you can probe a little bit more like, "Well, what's that involve?" Or, "That's interesting. Have you ever considered doing something different?" If they say yes, then you can say something like, and this is what I like to do. I say, "Well, listen, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you see your life being like in the next 2 years?" That way you get down to that person's why, and you can make them feel really good, and it'll put them in a really positive state of mind, so they'll be more open when you start talking about your network marketing opportunity. So this idea of starting a conversation and getting to know a person, doing some questions, feeling that person out, is all designed so that you can feel comfortable with that person and they can feel comfortable with you before you start talking to them about your opportunity. Now the next thing you'll want to do is learn how to tell your story and introduce your opportunity to that person. We'll explore that in part 3.